Hi everybody. I hope everybody's holding up well given the circumstances. For today's class I'm going to focus on strengthening the back line of your body, and since I don't get much time to talk about this sort of thing in a regular yoga class, I'm just going to take a couple minutes to talk about why and what exactly that means. So the back line is really the group or the chain of muscles that all work together on the back of our body. And a lot of these muscles, because of us having to sit for extended periods of time at desks and right now on our couches, these muscles get lengthened and sort of locked in a lengthened position, and then it's harder for them to work against the antagonist muscles in the front body that are wanting to shorten and sort of pull us into this fetal-like position. While we do need to strengthen the front line as well, I think in today's society it's particularly important to strengthen the back line, our whole, all the back muscles, the erector spinae that keep us erect through the spine, the glutes, the hamstrings, etc. So I'll be focusing on that today as well as some balance. And for the practice, you're going to want either a bolster if you have one, or if you don't have one, what I'm going to use today, I have a bolster, but I'm going to use this just to demonstrate so that people know that whatever they have at home will suffice. So I have basically just a big stack of towels. So you could also use a block if needed. I won't be using a block for this practice, but certainly if you need to modify your practice with a block or a book or anything, go ahead and do that. And as always, listen to your body. Don't do anything that doesn't feel right. And I also brought in one of my orchids so that you guys would feel a little more at home, as I know that most people love the orchids at the studio. So with that, let's get started. What I'm going to do is place the stack of towels in the center of my mat. And you want them to be nice and even. And then what I'm going to do, if you're using a bolster, and you guys have been in my class before, many of you guys have all done this with me many times, what you're going to do is come to sit on top. And then you're going to lower your upper body down, sort of scoot the bum a bit forward, lengthen up through the tailbone towards the backs of the knees, and then walk down onto the shoulders and upper back. So my pelvis and my low back are supported. It's like a supported bridge, but with a bit more support. And from here, for now, let's just open up the arms into a letter A-like shape, and then walk the feet a little wide, let the knees knock in towards each other. Just slow the breath down. Begin to let the pelvis settle heavier onto the support. Letting the upper back and shoulders get weighted, back of the skull is heavy. There is some space behind the back of the neck, some negative space. Allow that natural curve in the neck. Letting your footprints get heavier into the floor. And begin to take the breath all the way down into the belly. If you want, you could even place your hands onto the lower abdomen, beginning to spread the tissue of the belly on the inhale, feeling out the belly, feeling it lift up towards the ceiling. On the exhale, allow the belly to soften back towards the spine. Let your pelvis get heavier, maybe a little heavier into the tailbone end of the pelvis. Another inhale breath, filling out the belly, feeling the low back perhaps fill out into those towels or your bolster. Exhaling completely. Filling out the entire lower torso, so feeling it spread in all directions. Exhaling, letting the belly soften. Your next breath in, filling out the lower belly and torso, and then feeling the sides of your ribs widen. Exhale, the ribs narrow. Inhale to inflate the lower belly, widen the ribs. Exhaling, trying to stay soft through the face. One more breath in, feeling out the belly, sides of the ribs. Now feeling the sides of the chest lift up. Feeling the chest descend, ribs narrow, belly soften back. Continuing to breathe here and allowing the breath to be smooth and soft. Does not have to be your deepest breath. And as I'm practicing today, I'll be focused more on cueing the movement. So just allowing the breath to be easy but controlled. And what I mean by that is allowing the breath to flow smoothly, but not letting the breath sort of get away from you. Not taking big gulps of air or quick exhales, trying to keep a slow, natural rhythm to the breath. Begin to heel toe the feet a little closer together, more in line with your hips and your sit bones. Get a little heavier into your left foot, and then draw the right knee in towards your chest. Interlace your hands around your right shin bone, and give your shin a little pull in towards the belly and the ribs. Take a breath in. Continuing to fill out the whole torso. And a full breath out. One more breath in. The breath out, release the sole of your right foot back down to the floor. Draw your left knee in towards your chest. Interlace your hands, grabbing on to your shin bone, pulling on the shin bone. Take a breath in. Full breath out. One more inhale to inflate the torso. And release the grip of your shin. Let your left foot come back down to the floor. Keeping your left foot grounded firmly into the floor. Draw your right knee in towards your chest without the assistance of your hands. Pausing here. Flex through the foot. And then press the whole sole of your foot up towards the ceiling, straightening out through the leg. If your leg doesn't want to straighten completely here, you can definitely have a knee bend. But you're still continuing to push up through the back of your Achilles towards the ceiling and the whole footprint. Tense up through the front of your quad, so you're feeling your kneecap lift and the quad muscle engage. And now just pretending that you've got an imaginary wall behind your right leg, and you're pressing the whole length of your leg from sit bone to heel into that wall. Take a slow breath in. On the breath out, continue with that push. Begin to push through that wall as you slowly begin to lower your right leg down to about hip height. Pausing to hover the leg. As you hover the leg at hip height, again, you're continuing to find that push down. I'm squeezing my right glute towards the back of my heel. Hamstring, calves, and right heel are pushing towards the floor. And then pointing through the toe. Find the strength through the front of your belly, front of your right hip, to slow motion lift that leg all the way back up to the ceiling. From here, pausing to flex the foot. Press up through the sole of your foot, then push through the back line of your leg, slow motion pressing that leg all the way back down to about hip height. Pausing here, find that extra push to press the whole back line of your leg towards the floor, then point through the toe, lift the leg back up. One more time, press through the back of your right leg, slow motion, lowering the leg all the way down to hover. Keep pushing through the back of your leg and pressing the sole of your foot forward, creating a bit of space in that right side body. Point through the toe, lift the leg all the way back up, bend the knee, return the right foot to the floor. Other side, get heavier to your right foot, lift the left knee up, flex the foot, press it straight up towards the ceiling. Bit of a stretch here. Pressing through the whole sole of the foot, reaching up through the back of your Achilles, the back of your heel. And then from here, pressing the whole back line from sit bone to heel into an imaginary wall behind you. Push, 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 push. Take a breath in. On the breath out, push through that wall like you're moving through thick honey. Push the leg all the way down towards the floor. Pausing at about hip height. Continuing to engage the leg here. Squeeze the left glute. Push the hamstring, the back of your left calf and your heel towards the floor, even though it's not moving anywhere. Then here, point the toe, squeeze from the belly to lift the leg back up. Flexing through the foot, find that length through the Achilles. Keep all the length in the back of your leg as you lower that left leg back down towards the floor. Pausing here, push, squeeze that left glute, press the whole leg towards the floor without it actually moving lower than hip height just yet. Point the toe once again. Squeeze from the belly to lift the leg back up. Flexing through the foot. Slowly lower that left leg back down to hover. Pausing in that hover. Push through the heel to reach it towards the wall. So much so that maybe you create a little extra space in the left side body. One more time. Pointing through the toe. Lift the leg all the way back up. From here, bend the knee, let the left foot land back onto the floor. Coming back to the right side, draw the right knee back in, lengthen the leg up towards the ceiling. Flexing through the foot, spreading out through the toes. Push the whole back of your leg through that imaginary wall. Coming all the way down to hip height. Maybe going a little lower than that this time. You could continue to just work the strength here, or continue to lower your right heel towards the floor. If you need to bend your knee generously to do that, go ahead, that's fine. Otherwise, you can keep a straight leg and then push the back of your heel into the floor, and then bring your awareness to the area where your glute meets your hamstring at the upper part of the back of your thigh. Really press that line of tissue towards the floor as you lengthen out through the right heel. So the whole back of your leg is working hard here. 2 breaths. Slowly inhaling to inflate the belly. And softening the belly as you exhale. Inhaling. The more you breathe down into that lower belly, the more sensation you might feel in the front of that right hip. Exhale completely. And from here, point through the toe, squeeze from the belly to lift the leg back up. Flex through the foot, lower it back down once again. Land the back of your heel. Push, push, push through the right glute, the whole back line of your leg. Point through the toe, lift the leg back up. One more time, lowering that leg back down. Pausing here to press the heel. Press through the back of your hamstring and glute. Opening up the front of your right hip, maybe finding a sense of lifting up through that right hip point towards the front ribs. And pointing through the toe, lift the leg back up. Bending your knee, land it back onto the floor. Take a little pause here. Slow breath in. Complete breath out. Maybe already noticing a bit more space in the front of the right belly. Then draw your left knee back in. Lengthen the leg back up. Push through the back of your Achilles. Slow motion, begin to press the whole back line of your leg down towards the floor. Maybe you pause at hip height once again, or continue to go further, landing the left heel, bending the knee if needed, but pushing the back of your Achilles, or your heel, pushing the space where the glute and hamstring meet, that little smile line at the bottom of your glute. Press that into the floor. Push, push, push. Feel the hamstring engage. Feel that opening through the front of your lower belly. Point through the toe. Lift the leg all the way back up. Flex through the foot, lowering it back down. Press the back of your heel into the floor. Push the whole back of your hamstring and glute into the floor. Push, push, push. Take a big breath in here. And a full exhale. One more breath in. And complete exhale. Point through the toe, lift the leg back up. One more time, flexing the foot, slowly lower that left heel back down towards the floor. Pausing here once again, push the heel into the floor, push the back of your hamstring and glute into the floor, finding length, pushing the sole of your foot towards the wall in front of you. Continuing to breathe into the left lower quadrant of your torso, and maybe finding a bit of lift of that left hip point towards the left front ribs. Breathing here. Pointing through your toes, squeeze from the belly to lift the leg back up, bend your knee, release the foot back onto the floor. Take a breath in. And a full breath out. We'll stay lifted up on the support here, and then coming into the upper body. We'll let the lower body become a little more passive here for a moment. Reach down with your hands for the outsides of your mat. Pull the mat apart and walk one shoulder blade underneath you and then the other until you feel the sides of your chest lift up a little. Re-land the backs of your shoulder blades on the floor. Press through the back of your skull a lot, but maintain the space behind the back of the neck. I'm just going to move my hair so you can see that. Maintaining that natural curve at the back of the neck, not allowing the chin to jut up towards the ceiling, but equally not jamming the chin in towards the throat, finding a nice neutral line through the neck. You can release the mat, continue to press through the back of the skull, and then bend at the elbows and let the palms face towards one another. So elbows are bent at 90 degrees, fingertips are pointing up towards the ceiling. And then you're pushing the elbows into the floor. Try to match the pressure of the elbows into the floor with the upper shoulder, or the upper arms, and up towards the shoulders into the mat. So you're widening your collarbones. Imagine somebody's pressing the outsides of your shoulders down towards the floor, and then as you push the whole upper arm bone into the floor, feel how that sense of lift wants to happen through the sides of your chest. Continuing to press through the upper arm bones, widen your collarbones, breathing here. Feeling those muscles surrounding the shoulder blades begin to engage. One more breath in. And on the breath out, release the hands back down. Walk your feet in towards your sit bones, lift up through your hips, and you can pull the bolster or towels out from underneath you. Just let them off to one side. Coming back down to bend the knees and land the feet onto the floor in your Ardha Shavasana. Slowing the breath down here. Feet are in line with your sit bones. Now, I want you to walk your feet in as close as you normally would walk your feet in for your bridge pose, which is generally really close to your sit bones. And then I want you to walk at least a half footprint further away from your sit bones. It's not that having the feet jammed in towards the sit bones is wrong, but it's good to change up how we are moving our tissues on a regular basis. And sometimes people, I think, have the idea that feet further away is going to make things easier. In fact, it can make things a little more challenging for the back line of your legs. landing the soles of your feet onto the floor. Push through the inner heels and the big toe mounds, and then match that by pressing through the outside edge of your foot. Spread out through your toes. And then bring your attention to your pelvis. Just take a moment to tip a little heavier into your tailbone, arching through your lower spine a little. You can see there's a big gap underneath my low back. And then reverse that. Press the whole back into the floor. Tuck the tailbone a little. And then find the space in between where you feel the pelvis is in a pretty neutral position. My tailbone is heavy towards but not pressing into the floor. There's space under my low back, but I can't really jam my whole hand underneath there. And I feel almost a sense of opening through my lower belly as I allow those muscles to soften a little. From here, keeping all that on the lower body, grabbing onto the outside edge of your mat. Once again, walk one shoulder blade underneath you and then the other. Feel the sides of your chest lift. Push the upper arm bones into the floor. Bend at the elbows. Come back into that robot arm shape. Back of the skull is heavy. Take a breath in and a breath out. One more inhale. On the breath out, find a subtle hug of your front ribs towards your front hips. Feel the belly engage just a little bit here. And then equally press through the feet and the backs of the arms as well as the shoulders, a little bit through the skull. Begin to hover your hips just an inch or two off of the floor. Take a slow breath in. And on the breath out, keeping ribs and hips connected, land your hips back down. From here, take an inhale, find an arch through your low back, lift up through the ribs, let them flare out a little. Exhale, round your lower back into the floor. Inhale back to your neutral. Push through the feet, the backs of the arms, the skull just a little bit, lift the hips back up to hover just an inch or two off the floor. From here, let's find the real work of our foundation, all that part of our body that's in contact with the floor, actively pressing through the upper arm bones until you feel the chest widen a little bit. And then coming into the heels, push the heels into the floor. Notice if you want to be a little heavier through one heel than the other. Try to find the balance between both sides. Continue to lift the hips up, coming a little bit higher now, but not going up into your highest bridge. Coming up just enough so that you can feel the strength of the glutes working. Feel the opening through the front body. You're not finding any compression through the back. Just a sense of opening through the front body and strengthening through the back body. Pausing here to breathe. And as your glutes begin to fatigue, see if you can continue to press evenly through the upper arms, through the heels, to try to distribute the work of the pose throughout the body rather than just thinking of glute strength. Feel the glutes working, but also feel the hamstrings working. Feel the erectors of the spine working, those big strappy muscles that run along the spine. Feel the muscles between the shoulder blades. Maybe as you press your upper arms into the floor a little bit more, find a gentle hug in of the shoulder blades towards one another and feel the muscles in the back of the neck. Don't force the back of the neck into the floor, but pressing through the middle of the back of your skull just enough to engage those muscles, because these muscles need to be strengthened as well. One more breath here. And then keeping ribs and hips connected, lower back down through the hips. Take a little pause, let your arms come back to rest, palms facing the ceiling. Let's heel toe the feet a little wider apart. And then just sway the legs from side to side in your windshield wipers. Allowing just a little bit of rotation through the spine. A little bit of movement through the hips. And unwinding the tissues of the lower body. And as you're practicing here, I actually keep my eyes closed quite a bit when I'm doing this kind of work, and the reason for that is I feel I can sense things better with my eyes closed. I can go deeper within, but feel free to keep the eyes open. As you're doing this floor work, just soften your gaze a little bit, maybe half close the eyes. And then swinging the legs back to center, heel toe the feet back in line with your sit bones. Coming back into that robot arm shape, find your foundation. The whole footprint of each foot pressing into the floor, finding a little lift up through the arches. Pushing through the back lines of your shoulders and the upper arms, trying to balance the pressure between elbows and shoulder blades. Pushing through the back of the skull. And then squeeze and lift your hips up just an inch. And then coming up a little bit higher, nice and slowly, keep ribs and hips connected. From here, maintain that lift, still not coming into your highest bridge since we're starting a practice with bridge. We don't want to go into our deepest form of the pose just yet. Continue to push through the back of your upper arms and shoulder blades. Push through the feet. And then find a sense of dragging the heels towards your sit bones without the feet actually moving. They might move like a millimeter or so, but almost like you're trying to drag your feet back, but they're glued to the floor. That's going to help you engage the back of your hamstrings even more. Finding a little bit of length from the tailbone towards the back of my knees, but I'm not actively tucking my tailbone. It's still fairly neutral. Pausing here to breathe, widening through the chest. Wrapping the collarbones around the shoulder blade, around the outer shoulders. Breathing here. Bridge pose is one of my favorite poses because of the cultural norms we have today where being seated in chairs is just what we do most of the time. So we kind of end up in a little bit of a fetal position throughout the day. And as we maintain those shapes for longer and longer, our body begins to lay down connective tissue to support those shapes. So we want to be taking our body out of those shapes on a regular basis. That can mean just getting up out of your chair and doing a little walkabout in your office or at home. But it's also important to then come back and strengthen those muscles that have been locked in a lengthened position for too great a period of time. One more breath here. And slowly lowering the hips back down to the floor. Release the arms. Give yourself a little shake. Walk the feet a little wider than the hips. Begin to just playfully sway the legs from side to side. You could even move the arms a little bit here. I'm going to move a little bit intuitively. So I am doing windshield wipers, but I'm also working with the sensations in my body. Just kind of working with what feels good. And unwinding, preparing for more movement. And then swaying the legs to one side, roll to your side, press yourself up. We'll come into a tabletop position on the mat. Hands are coming beneath shoulders, knees are beneath hips. Root down through the fingertips and the edges of your palm, but then create a little bit of a suction cup sort of feeling. So the whole periphery of your hand is pressing into the floor while the center is sort of suctioning up. Create that sense of lift all the way up through the arm bones. Draw the shoulder blades down the back and reach out through the crown of the head and the tailbone equally. Take a slow breath in and a complete breath out. One more breath in And a full breath out. Get a little heavier into your right shin bone. Toes can stay tucked, or you could untuck the toes here, your preference. And then step back through the left foot. Push the left foot towards the back wall. As you're pushing the left foot towards the back wall, squeeze the left knee so you're engaging your quad. Try to keep the back of your pelvis fairly balanced. Keep pushing out through the sole of your foot until you feel the foot want to hover up and off of the floor, and then squeeze it up to about hip height. We want to keep the leg lifted, but we want to keep the hip points facing down towards the floor to maximally engage our glute max. We don't want to open up through the hip to lift the leg higher. It's not about leg height here. We're working backline strength. So continuing to push through the sole of the foot as you lift that leg up to about hip height. It's okay if there's a little bit of an arch in the low back, but you don't want to hang into your ribs, compressing the lower back like this. Coming back into that shape. Keep those front ribs lifted up. And then land your left shin bone back onto the floor. Step back through your right foot. Push back through the sole of your foot. Keep pushing, pushing, pushing till you feel that right leg want to float, lift it up, about in line with your hip. Breathing here. Again, checking in with those front ribs a little. Not hanging too heavily into them, not creating a hammock banana shape in the low back. This is pretty much the exact same shape that we just did on our backs, supported by the towels. Now we're just changing the relationship to gravity and working those tissues in a different way. Bending your right knee, landing it back onto the floor. Toes are untucked here. Take an inhale, find your cow shape. Lift up through the tailbone, shoulder blades draw down the back, look forward. As you exhale, tuck the tail, push the floor away, round your spine, cat pose. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow. And exhale, cat. Inhale, cow to stay. I'm going to tuck my toes here now. Keep the lift through the tailbone, the width through the sit bones. Breathe into the belly. And then get a little stronger into those fingertips until the nail beds whiten a little to take the pressure out of the heels of your hands. From here, draw up through the belly just a little bit, or finding that squeeze and lift of front ribs towards front hips to engage the abdomen. Hover your shin bones here. Keep widening and spreading out through the sit bones. Tap the knees back down. Take an inhale breath. On your next exhale, hug the ribs in, squeeze and lift your shins up and off of the floor. Keep looking forward. Try to keep the back of your neck long. There's a tendency, I do it as well, to sort of jet your chin forward in this shape. But we can keep the face looking towards the floor a little bit, not totally tucking the chin, just to keep a little more length through the back of your neck. Land your knees back down. Take an inhale, cow. Exhale, cat, rounding your spine. Inhale, cow. And exhale to your tabletop. You're going to come back into that bird dog shape. Untuck your right toes if that's your preference. Step back through your left foot. Begin to stretch back through the left foot. Keep pushing back through the left heel until you feel that left foot want to hover. Then squeeze it up in line with your left hip. Stretch the right arm forward. Begin to push up through the thumb towards the ceiling. Take an inhale breath. As you exhale, begin to round your spine. Bend your left knee towards your right elbow. Pull the belly up and in. Inhale, stretching it all the way back out. Exhale, rounding your spine. Shh, knee to elbow. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, round. Shh. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, round. Shh. Inhale, lengthen. And exhaling to round. Shh. Return left shin and right hand to the floor. Take an inhale here. As you exhale, step back through the right foot. Push back through the right heel. Begin to lengthen up through the left arm. Take an inhale. And a complete exhale. Keep pushing up through that right foot until you feel it want to hover and lift up in line with your right hip. Take an inhale breath. Exhale, round the spine, knee to elbow. Inhale, lengthen the left arm away from the right leg. Exhale, round the right knee to the left elbow. Inhale as you lengthen up, push out through the whole sole of your right foot. Exhale, round the spine. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, round. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, round. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, land the right shin and the left hand. Pausing here to take a breath in. And a complete breath out. Tuck your toes. Begin to hover your shins up and off of the floor. Begin to slowly push down through the heels as you lift up through the sit bones, pressing your chest back towards your thighs, downward facing dog. My legs are nice and long here. If you need to bend your knees generously to lengthen the spine, go ahead and do that, but still push down through the backs of your heels and lift up through your sit bones. You can do the same actions even if your legs are not straight. Pausing here. Taking a slow inhale and a slow exhale. One more breath in. On the breath out, lift up tall through the heels. Bend your knees a lot. Slowly hover your shin bones down so you reach your chest forward, coming into a hovering table. And then land your knees. Take an inhale, cow. Exhale, cat, rounding the spine. Inhale, cow, lifting up through the tail. Hover the shins. Begin to push down through the heels. Lift up through the sit bones. Press your chest back towards your thighs. Lift up tall onto the balls of the feet. Bend your knees. Slowly hover your shin bones back down towards the floor. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Inhale, cow, lift up through the tail, hover your shins, slowly push down through the heels, lift up through the sit bones to lengthen the legs, press your chest back, pausing in your down dog. We'll take a full down dog here. Take any little movements that feel really good to you to ground into your practice. So it could be bending and stretching the knees, pedaling the feet, sway the hips from side to side, or maybe finding stillness and really working into the roots of the hands and feet. From here, look towards the top of your mat. Find a bit of stillness before you step your feet up, taking your flat back. Hands coming up your shins. Release to forward fold, bending your knees a lot. Let your head dangle. 2 breaths here. Draw the hands up your shins. Find a nice long spine. And then from here, find a micro bend in your knees. Find the length through the belly, through the spine, and begin to widen out through the hands, pressing the backs of your fingernails evenly up towards the ceiling, the whole length of your arm bones up towards the ceiling, keeping them about shoulder height. Keep pushing up through the backs of the hands. Maybe find a little bit of a squeeze between the shoulder blades. Keep reaching your heart forward. Bend the knees. Release the hands back down to your shins. Bend your knees a lot. Round back over your thighs. One more breath in. And a full breath out. This time we'll rise all the way up using a long spine today. Spread the arms wide, thighs back, heart forward as you rise all the way up, reaching the hands back and wide. Lift up towards the ceiling, look up. Slow motion, fold forward, bending the knees, letting belly, ribs, and chest land onto your thighs. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, bending your knees, palms to the mat. Step your feet back, coming into your plank pose. Pausing in your plank here. Heavy the fingertips, push firmly through the nail beds of your hands. Keep pressing back through the soles of the feet, reaching your heart forward. On your next exhale, slowly lower all the way down to your belly. Untuck your toes one at a time. Find lots of length through the legs. Lift and lengthen each leg. Push through the ankle creases and the hip creases. Hands are on either side of the ribs. Try to hover your head above the floor. Keep looking down at the floor and not jutting the chin forward. Crown of the head's reaching forward. From here, squeeze your bum towards the backs of your heels. Find a little bit of lift in your belly. And then hug the inner elbows towards one another. Coming back to that movement at the beginning of class where we were pressing the whole back line of our upper arms into the floor. Find that same action here. So the elbows are pressing up towards the ceilings, but the shoulders are meeting that same level of pressure up towards the ceiling. Keep that happening, and then maybe begin to feel the hands want to hover and float up and off of the floor. Keep reaching through the crown of the head, tailbone, pulling back towards the heels, hover the hands, release the hands, release the chest. Press yourself back to child's pose. Glue your fingertips to the floor, round your spine forward through cat, tuck your toes, lift your hips, downward facing dog. 2 breaths. Look to the top of your mat, step your feet up. Hands coming up your shins, flat back. Release to forward fold. Bend the knees a lot, spread the arms wide, rise all the way up with a long spine. Fingertips come to touch. Fold forward, dive all the way back down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, bending the knees, land your hands, step back to plank, pausing in your plank. Hug your inner shin bones and inner thighs towards each other. Keep the belly lifted and then try to drag the thumb pads towards each other, even though they're not going to move, to engage the inseams of your arms. Slow lower to your belly. Untuck your toes. Firm pressure through the tops of the feet, through the hip creases, pausing to hover the face above the floor. Find a little pull of the shoulders down the back. Begin to press up through the backs of your upper arms, your triceps towards the ceiling. Keep pushing, pushing, pushing through the upper arms until you feel the hands begin to float up off of the floor. Pausing here. 2 breaths. Matching the pressure towards the ceiling between the elbows and the shoulders. And then from here, you could stay here or you could curl the fingers underneath the palms. Slowly begin to reach the hands back towards the wall behind you. Find an even lift from the palms of the hands through the shoulders so the arms are about even. And then keep pushing, pushing, pushing up towards the ceiling. Maybe lift up through the chest a little higher. Still finding length through the back of the neck. If you're feeling any compression in the low back here, lower the chest a little or find more squeeze of your bum towards your heels. From here, curl the fingertips underneath your hands. Rewind the arms, come back to hover the hands on either side of the ribs. Land your hands, land your chest. Press yourself back to child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat. Tuck your toes, lift your hips. Downward facing dog. Look to the top of your mat, step your feet up. Take flat back, hands coming up your shins. Forward fold. Spread the arms wide, find a long spine, then rise all the way up. Lift up through the arms. Exhale, folding forward. Try to slow that motion down and keep pressing up through the fingernails, the backs of the arms, and then bend your knees, fold over your thighs. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, bend your knees, land your hands, step back to your plank. Pausing in your plank, squeeze the inner legs towards each other. Squeeze the inner arms towards each other. Lower to the belly, nice and slow. Untuck the toes, firm up through the legs. Find length from tailbone to crown of the head, looking down towards your mat, and then hover your hands once again. Keep pressing the backs of the arms up towards the ceiling. Then curl the fingers underneath the palms. Slowly stretch your hands back towards the wall behind you. Push up through the palms, up through the shoulders, lift up through the chest a little higher. Option to stay here or perhaps hover the feet off the floor. As you lift your feet up, try not to lift them too high. Keep the pinky toes facing down towards the floor and squeeze the inner ankles towards each other. Release the feet. Rewind the arms, take them back on either side of the ribs. Land your hands, land your chest. Press yourself back, child's pose. Round your spine forward through cat pose. Tuck your toes, lift your hips. Down dog. 2 breaths. Look to the top of your mat, step your feet up. Take flat back, hands coming up your shins. Release to forward fold. Spread the arms wide, long spine as you rise all the way up. Lift up through the heart and the hands. Press the hands wide as you fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees, land your hands, step back to plank. From knees or toes, lower to the belly. Untuck the toes. Hover the face. Hover the hands. Staying here or stretching back through the hands, pushing the palms and the shoulders evenly up towards the ceiling. Keep your heart stretching forward, your tailbone reaching back, and then maybe hover the feet. Pausing here to breathe. Finding an even lift through the shoulders and hands. Pushing up just a little through the back of your skull. Thinking of your upper thigh bones rotating, spiraling inward as you push up through the whole back line of your legs. Land your feet, rewind the arms, land your hands and chest, press yourself back to child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat, tuck your toes, lift your hips, downward facing dog. Changing it up a little here. Shift your weight into your left foot. Take a slow rise up through the right leg. Keep the hips square. Bend your knee. Round your spine, knee towards nose. Right foot to right thumb. Fingertips land onto the floor. Bend your back knee as though you're going to tap it down onto the floor, but just let it hover. And then push through the back of your heel. Squeeze your bum. Straighten out through that leg. Slowly bend your back knee. And then straightening back through the leg. One more time, bending the knee. Straightening out through the leg. Find length through the spine. Lift the chest just a little bit off of the leg until you feel the fingertips want to hover. Push back through the hands. Press the palms, the hands up. Squeeze the shoulder blades towards each other. Then reach the arms forward and up, coming into your crescent. Bending your back knee. If you're on a softer surface like I am, your balance is going to be challenged. I've got carpet underneath my mat, although my mat's sturdy. So if you are on a softer surface, then just be prepared that your balance may be a little affected by the softer surface, but it's actually really good to challenge ourselves in that way. Just be careful. Okay, still continuing to bend the back leg. Prayer the hands at your heart. Press your thumbs into your chest and your chest into your thumbs. Widen through the elbows. Slowly begin to fold forward again, finding a nice long line from the back of your left heel out through the crown of the head. Begin to come right up onto the tippy toe of your back foot. Drag the back toe forward. It's going to be really hard. And then squeeze and lift the left leg up just a few inches above the floor. So we're in a warrior 3 variation. I've got length from the crown of my head all the way out through the left heel. My back line is working. I'm finding a squeeze of my shoulder blades towards each other, pressing through the back of my hamstring, my glute, And then reaching long through the heel as I press it up towards the ceiling, even though I'm not fully forward into my warrior three. From here, land those back toes, arms reach forward and up. As you exhale, dive all the way back down, surround your front foot, sweep the right leg back, option keep it lifted or land the toes lower all the way to the belly. Land the right foot, flip the left, hover your hands, hover your feet. Land the hands and feet, press yourself back, child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat, tuck your toes, lift your hips, down dog. Shift your weight to the right foot. Slow rise up of the left leg, keeping the hips square. Bend your knee, round your spine, knee towards nose, left foot to left thumb. Coming into your lunge. Left knee over left ankle-ish. Push back through the right heel. Slowly begin to bend your right knee. And then find all that effort through the back line of your right leg as you straighten your right leg. So it looks like a really easy motion, but it should not be. Bend your back knee. As you push through the right heel, you're actively pressing the right hamstring as though you're trying to push through that imaginary wall once again. Finding all that strength through the back line of your right leg. Bending the knee again. And then straightening out through that leg. One more time, bend the knee. Arms reach forward and up, rise all the way up to your crescent with a bent back knee. Pausing here. You can widen your feet a little for balance if needed. Really squeeze that right glute down towards the back of your right thigh. Lift up through the chest. Prayerly hands at your heart. Thumbs press into chest and chest press into thumbs. Widen through the elbows. Begin to straighten that back leg as you hinge from your hip coming forward to hover over your left thigh. Come right up onto the tippy toe of your back foot. Drag the back toe in. Squeeze and lift the right leg up. There's a big bend in your base leg. Your right leg is squeezing up towards the ceiling, but you're not hinging any further forward into your warrior three. This can be your warrior three. You're getting all the benefits from the pose. You can even land your back toe here if needed for stability. Slowly land those back toes. I forgot that arm sweep back before, so I'm going to do it now. Press the hands back and up towards the ceiling. Find that squeeze between the shoulder blades. And then lower the hands back down to the floor. Step your left foot back. Option to sweep it back and keep it lifted or lower to the belly. Untuck your toes. Rise up through the chest. Hover the hands, hover the feet. Release hands and feet. Press yourself back to child's pose. Pull yourself forward through cat pose. Tuck your toes, lift your hips. Down dog. 2 breaths. Shift your weight to your left foot. Slow rise of the right leg. Bend the knee, round the spine, knee towards nose, right foot to right thumb. Coming up onto your fingertips until your fingertips want to hover, then press the hands back. Reach the arms forward, bending that back knee, rise up. Prayer the hands at your heart. Find that nice long line from the crown of the head to the back of the heel. Drag your back toe forward, squeeze and lift the leg up. Option to hover here. Or begin to shift your chest forward as you lift up through that back leg. Trying to find a fairly even pelvis. Left hip point pointing down towards the floor. Keep lifting up through the back of your left leg. And then land those back toes as you bend your base leg. Arms reach forward and up. Slowly fold forward, surround your front foot. Right foot sweeps back. Option to keep it lifted, lower to the belly. Untuck the toes. Hover the chest, hover the hands. Option to hover the feet. Land your hands and feet. Press yourself back in child's pose. Round your spine forward through cat. Tuck your toes, lift your hips. Down dog. 2 breaths. Shift your weight to your right foot. Slow rise of the left leg. Bend your knee, round your spine, knee towards nose, left foot to left thumb. Begin to hover the chest until you feel your fingertips want to hover, then push back through the hands, reach your heart forward. Bend your back knee as you reach the arms forward and up. Prayer the hands at your heart, chest to thumbs, thumbs to chest. Hinge from your left hip. Begin to drag the back toe in, squeeze and lift that right leg up. Option to pause here, or continue to hinge from that left hip, reaching your heart forward. Press back through the right toes. Keep the whole back of your leg pressing up towards the ceiling, but the right hip point is pointing down towards the floor, so you find that balanced pelvis. Land your back toes, arms reach forward and up. Slow fold forward. Land your hands, left foot sweeps back. Option to land the toes or lower here, landing the leg. Flip the right foot, hover the chest, hover the hands, hover the feet. Land the hands and feet. Press yourself back to child's pose. Pausing in your child's pose here. You can widen up through the knees a little bit. And then keep your chest and head hovering and just begin to shift from side to side. Keeping the hands grounded. And just let the torso move from one side to the other, creating a bit of a snaky wave-like feeling going up through the spine. And coming back to center. Walk your hands back towards your knees. Find narrow knees. I'm going to take a pause for a little drink. And coming to sit back onto your heels. Find a nice long spine here. Tailbone is reaching down towards the heels, crown of the head's lifted up. We still have that wide chest, shoulder blades drawing back, but not flaring the ribs too far forward. Coming up onto your shins, stacking your hips over your knees. Tuck your back toes and take your hands onto your hips. You can take your knees perhaps a little wider than normal here if needed. We're not going into a full camel, but we're working the actions of camel. Hands are coming onto hips. Find that squeeze down, but not that full tuck forward through the lower back. Squeeze the tailbone down towards the backs of the knees. Engage your glutes. Find a little bit of a lift up through the front hip points. Hands stay on your hips. From here, take a moment to just reach back a little bit. Lean the body back. Just to stretch out through the quads a little bit. This can be really challenging, so just be careful. Coming back up to stack hips over knees. So I'm keeping my head and shoulders and hips stacked, and then slowly leaning back to open up through the fronts of my quads. Coming back up. So while I'm opening my front body, I'm strengthening my back body. We'll do one more like that. Begin to lean the entire torso back. And then coming back up. Pause here to just draw the elbows towards one another. Lift up through the sides of the chest. Lift up through the heart. Lean the head back. This isn't a back bend class so much as it is a back strength class. So we're working just with these isometric contractions. Untuck your toes, sit back onto your heels. Pause here. You can find narrow knees once again, and then round your spine a lot, tuck your chin in, find a cat-like shape here. And then rounding or sending the heart forward and the tailbone back, shoulders draw down the back. Rounding your spine, tuck your chin. Reaching back through the tail, lift up through the chest, draw the shoulders back. One more time, rounding in your cat-like shape. Reaching back through the tail, lift up through the heart. And coming back into your neutral spine. We'll spin the shins off to one side and come back down onto the back. Coming back to our bridge pose from the beginning of class. Reach down, knees are bent, feet are flat on the floor. You can start off by walking the heels back as close to your sit bones as you can, and then walking your feet at least a half footprint further away from your sit bones, just to find a nice solid foundation. Reach your arms down alongside your mat and grab onto your mat once again. Pull the mat apart, walk one shoulder underneath you and then the other. Press the backs of your shoulders into the floor. Release the mat, bend at the elbows, find your robot arms once again. And then from here, begin to lift up through the hips just a little bit. Continue to push the outsides of your shoulders and your shoulder blades towards the floor. Use the bottom tips of your shoulder blades to scoop the heart up a little, keeping the sides of your chest lifted. Again, we're not going into our deepest bridge. We're working on strength, not so much flexibility and mobility here. Slowing the breath down. Slowly landing your hips, releasing the arms. You can heel toe the feet a little wider apart. Begin to sway the legs from side to side. Coming back to center, heel toe the feet back in line with your sit bones, bend at the elbows, find your foundation, push evenly through the entire back of your upper arms. Push the feet into the floor, push the back of the skull gently into the floor, and then hover your hips. Find that rib and hip connection, that little bit of a squeeze of your front ribs towards your front hips. And then lift your hips just a little bit higher, and then lower them to just an inch above the floor. And then lift your hips back up to about half the height of your normal bridge, and then lower back down. Lift up and lower, keeping the hip points fairly balanced. Lift and lower. Lift and lower. As you lift, keep pushing through the heels a lot. Lower. Lift and lower. Lift. Lower. Lift to stay. Coming back to those robot arms, pushing through the back line of your triceps, widening your shoulders, feel that lift through the spine. 2 more breaths. Slowly lower the hips back down. Take a little pause. Let your hands come back into that nice letter A shape. You can widen the feet. You could just hang out here and breathe if that feels better for you. Or come back into your windshield wipers once again. Just introducing a little bit more side bend and rotation into the spine, since this has been a very flexion extension class for our spines. And coming back to center, heel toe the feet back in line with your hips. Coming back into your robot arms, finding that low bridge. Hover your hips just a little bit. And then this time, hover your heels. Just getting the calves in on the action a little bit. And then keeping your hips lifted, again, not to your highest bridge. Just lower the heels to tap down, and then lift and lower. Lift and lower, just lifting and lower through the heels for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keeping the heels grounded now, lift your hips a little bit higher. Press through the backs of your arms and then try to drag your heels towards your shoulder blades, but they're not going to go anywhere. Slowing the breath down here. So this is where we begin to cultivate a little bit of resilience. So you can feel the whole back line of your legs, your glutes, your hamstrings, your lower back activating. You're probably beginning to feel a little bit of burning through the backs of the legs as those muscles work hard. And rather than giving up, you breathe. Slow the breath down. Find the smooth, slow breath that's going to calm your body down. And knowing that even though you're being challenged physically, mentally right now, that you can just breathe. Breathe through it. Continuing to hold your hips nice and high. If you need to shift a little bit, perhaps lift your hips a little bit higher just to change where the sensation is landing, but just not giving up just yet. Continuing to find that slow, steady breath. Can you continue to breathe and not let the tension creep up into the face or the throat? Don't allow your jaw to clench. Even if you can feel your legs shaking, your hips shaking, can you soften through the face and throat? And finally lowering down through the hips, releasing the hands, heel toe the feet a little wider once again. Sway the legs from side to side. We're going to take one more back bend, rolling to your side, press yourself back up. Coming to sit in a cross-legged seat for a moment. Take your hands onto your shins, and then pull on your shins so that you can lift the chest up a little. Coming into your breath. And then walk your hands back behind your hips and point the fingers towards the side walls. We'll unravel the legs and take the legs out in front of us with the knees generously bent. Come back into a windshield wiper-like shape here, but we're going to focus a little bit more on the internal rotation in the legs. So as you sway your legs to the left, your right knee is going to really roll towards the floor. Right hip is internally rotating a lot. And then come back through center all the way over to the right. Left leg rotates inward. One more time to the left. And to the right. And then coming back to center. We'll keep the fingers facing outward for this first one. We're going to do a reverse table. So your feet are in a similar shape to your bridge pose. You want to walk them a little further away than you might think. Fingertips are pointing away from each other. And then from here, begin to just let the chest slouch and round your upper back a lot. Let your chin just kind of hang out on your chest. So this is the opposite of the shape that we want. So from here, lift up through your chest. Draw the shoulder blades down your back and keep your chest lifted. Keep your chin tucked a little bit. And then from here, begin to push your feet into the floor. Lift your hips up, squeeze your bum up towards the ceiling. Pausing here to breathe. Find a little lift up through the shoulder blades, grounding down through the hands. Keeping your chin tucked, not allowing the head to hang back. And slowly lowering the hips back down. Cross your legs, come back up to a cross-legged seat, grabbing onto your shins, lift up tall through the chest. Take a couple breaths here. And then reaching the hands back behind you. Fingertips can face outward once again, or you can angle your hands at about a 45, not fingertips facing totally forward towards your hips, but in the space between. Draw the shoulders down the back, lift the sides of the chest up, looking forward. Push your hands down, push your feet down, squeeze and lift up from the hips. Tailbone lengthening to the backs of the knees, scooping the shoulder blades to lift the heart up. Breathing here. Keeping your chin tucked. One more breath in. And lower back down through the hips. Again, crossing your ankles, coming back up to seated. Let's take a little cat-cow this time. Rounding through the spine, tuck your chin. Inhale, reach the chest forward and up. Round your spine on the exhale. Inhale, tail back, heart forward. Exhale, rounding the spine. Inhale, lifting back up through the chest. Take the hands back behind your hips. Unravel the legs. Begin to sway the legs from side to side. And then coming back to center with the legs one more time, we'll come up into our reverse table. This time, option to have the fingers facing completely forward towards your hips. It's important here to not allow the shoulders to really dump forward and your chest to sink, especially with the fingertips facing forward like this. We want to exaggerate the lift up through the chest, the widening of the collarbones, and the drawing down of the shoulder blades here. If this does not feel good in your shoulders here, do not lift your hips off the floor. Instead, you can come back into that 45-degree fingers or the fingers facing wide to the side. Otherwise, push down through the hands, push down through the feet, lift your hips up. Nice bicep stretch here with your fingertips facing forward, continuing to breathe. Maybe finding a little drag back of the heels towards your shoulder blades. And slowly lowering back down through the hips. Cross your ankles, come back up. Find your nice tall seat. Slowing the breath down. And stay lifted and tall up through the chest and spine. Keep your right hand on your right shin bone and reach your left hand back behind your left hip. Lift up through the spine and the chest. Begin to rotate to the left, taking a peek out over your left shoulder. As you breathe, widening the ribs. Take one more breath here. And then slowly rotating back to center. Let your left hand come back to your left shin. Reach your right hand back behind you. Take a slow twist to the right. Taking a peek out over your right shoulder. On your next exhale, coming back to center, let your right hand return to your right shin. And then walking the feet a little further apart. Option here, actually let me just show you. Let's take one of those towels and fold it up. Many of us cannot, even when we think we can sit on the floor without rounding into our low back, we often can't. So it's good to elevate the hips just a little bit with your folded up towel. I'm going to sit up onto my towel. You might need more height than this. What we're looking for is a nice lift up through the lower back rather than a roundness, a slouching through the spine. So finding that lift up through the low back, rocking forward onto the fronts of your sit bones with the tailbone reaching back slightly. We'll take the soles of the feet together, hanging onto your shins. Create a sense of pulling up on the shins as you draw the shoulder blades down the back, and then widen through the chest, keep drawing the shoulder blades back towards one another. Counter that with just a little bit of a squeeze of the front ribs in, if you're somebody who's fairly flexible through that mid-back region. For some of us, it's just going to be challenging enough to keep the chest lifted here, but for those of us with a more flexible spine, we might tend to jam into the mid-back and send the rib cage forward. So trying to find the balance between shoulders back without flaring out through the ribs too much. Slowing the breath down. From here, option to stay in this nice tall spine, or since we've been working on strengthening the back line so much in this class, let's find some length there. I want you to feel the rock forward onto the fronts of your sit bones here, and then allow the chest to come forward and the spine to fold forward. Walk your hands forward. Let's just take the fingertips a little further forward from the feet, nice and wide, and then allow the spine to round. Slowing the breath down, really sending the breath into the lumbar area in the low back where we've got this thoracolumbar fascia here. So trying to spread that out as you breathe in. And letting your hips get heavier as you breathe out. If you can come further forward, you're welcome to, but if you are coming further forward, don't think of your head trying to reach the floor. Think of your chest trying to come forward and the hinge from your hips so that you're getting more of a stretch in through the hips as you stretch the lumbar muscles rather than rounding too much, getting your head down towards your feet, but then perhaps overstretching the muscles in the back, which, as we talked about earlier, are often already sort of too long already. Here. And then walk your fingertips back, coming back into that shape of landing your hands on your shin bones, pulling up on your shin bones as you draw your shoulder blades down the back. Let's find a contraction through those muscles that we just lengthened out. So I'm thinking tailbone back, Shoulder blades drawing back towards one another, chest lifted up. Back of the skull pushing into an imaginary wall behind me. You could even sit at the wall if you like to feel that feedback. And reaching the hands for the outsides of the knees. Scoop the knees up. Lengthen out one leg and then the other. Come to sit up nice and tall on your sit bones once again. Spread out through the toes. Fingertips come to sit on either side of your hips. Fingertips push into the floor. Reach down through the lengths of the arms as you lift up through the sides of your chest. Draw the shoulders back once again. Dandasana, staff pose. This isn't practiced a lot in a vinyasa class, but it's actually a really important pose, especially as you get into more floor work or seated forward folds. Reach your left hand under the back of your left knee, scoop up your knee. Pull the left heel in towards your left sit bone and then butterfly the leg out to the left. Draw your left heel in and then right leg is going to widen a little bit into almost like a V-like shape. Keep that right foot nice and active. Twist the torso to face that bent left knee. Hands can be on either side. You can pause here to breathe in a twist. Widening the ribs. And then from here, finger walk your right finger a little further forward to the inside of your right shin. Stretch your left arm up. Ground down through the left sit bone as you side bend to the right. Arcing that left arm overhead. As I reach my left arm overhead, I'm also pressing up through the whole forearm towards the ceiling as I ground down through my left sit bone to create a fascial stretch on that left side body. From here, I'm also pressing my right hand into the floor, or fingertips it could be, and then pushing into the floor a little bit to create a little more strength on the right side, squeezing my right side waist as I open up through my left side. And then stacking the spine back up, scooping up the left knee, straightening it out in front of you, right leg comes back. Coming back to your Dandasana, fingertips come onto the floor, lift up through the sides of the chest, draw the shoulders back. Toes are active. And then reaching your right hand underneath the back of your right knee, scoop up the knee, pull the right heel in towards your sit bone, and then butterfly the leg to the right. Pull that right heel in. Lift up your left leg and take it out to the left on a little bit of a letter V shape. And then rotate your chest to face the bent right knee. Finger walk, or we'll pause here to breathe rather. Staying active through your left foot. And then begin to finger walk your left leg further along the floor towards the left shin. You can ground your hand or stay up on fingertips. Right arm lifts up, ground down through the right sit bone, ground down through the left thigh bone, side bend towards your straightened left leg as you reach out through the right fingers. As I continue to reach the arm overhead, I'm going to push up through the back of my right forearm. So my forearm, the backs of my fingernails are sort of pressing up towards the ceiling to get into more of a stretch through the lats on the right side. Stack your spine all the way back up. Scoop up the right leg, straighten it out. Left leg comes back. We'll find Dandasana one more time. Fingertips onto the floor. Ground down through the backs of the heels, the backs of the knees, and the tops of your thigh bones pushing back into the floor. And crossing the legs. Let's pull that blanket or towel out from underneath you and set it off to one side. And then we'll come back down onto the back. Lower all the way onto your back. Knees bent, feet flat on the floor. Slowing the breath down. Any little movements that you like to end your practice with, you could come back and do some more windshield wipers. You might take happy baby or knees into chest, whatever you prefer. I'm going to take knees into chest, sort of a knees to chest Vipassana, a happy baby hybrid I like to do is just knees into your chest and then take the shin bones wide and then roll from side to side. Gently rocking from one hip to the other. And as you roll to the left, just pause and hang out on your left side for a moment. And then as you come back over to the right, pausing, hanging out over to the right. Come back through center, all the way over to the left. Roll completely onto your left side and let the legs come back together. And then lift up your right leg. Begin to rock back onto the back of your spine and pelvis. Come all the way back through center and over to the right side. I think this little credenza is in my way, but let your left leg come onto your right leg completely on your side. And then lift up your left leg. A slow motion roll back through center and all the way over to the left. Lift up your right leg. Begin to rotate to the right, back through center all the way onto that right side. And then lift up your left leg. And then just take this motion and make it your own. Just slowly, kind of playfully rocking from one side to the other. It feels really good, especially once you begin to just let the weight of your bones kind of take over the movement. So as you lift one leg up, eventually just the weight of that leg is what pulls you all the way over to the other side. Then you arrive on that side, you lift up the top leg again, come back through center, all the way over to the right, or the opposite side. Continuing to just sort of sway from side to side. And coming back to center, release the soles of the feet back onto the floor. We did a lot of back strength work today, so it may feel good for you to stay in Ardha Shavasana, half Shavasana with the knees bent and the feet flat on the floor, letting your knees tent in towards one another. Or option to straighten out one leg and then the other, taking up all kinds of space, completely letting the body rest. Maybe taking the first few seconds to settle the breath, but then just completely letting go of even the awareness of the breath, and softening, and sinking into the floor. deepening the breath. Beginning to find a little bit of movement anywhere that feels good in your body. Slowly beginning to make your way to one side. Pause for a little rest. And slowly pressing yourself up to seated, coming into a nice cross-legged seat. You could sit up onto something or just sit flat on the floor. Lifting up tall through the spine once again. Root down through the sit bones and rise up through the crown of your head. Prayer the hands at your heart, thumbs into your chest. Take a slow breath in. And a complete exhale. Bow to yourself and thank yourself for practicing. Namaste.